And we're back, Sports Next Door, to wrap up the show with our basketball storylines. We've got four series to talk about and are going to see if we can thread this needle and time it so that as we arrive at our last series, Denver Phoenix, that game is just wrapping up. I think we're around the 10-minute mark in the fourth quarter right now. But we're going to lead with Milwaukee, Brooklyn, and a series that looked like it might be over is now tied 2-2. I don't know if I can pat myself on the back for this one, but I said previewing it and just talking about Brooklyn's chances in general, you can't not consider injury after we really have more questions than answers about what this big three looks like together. And that's continued in this round against the Bucks. And I don't know, it seems like a huge part of the storyline to me, but I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I we'll see how far we can get before we get to the Suns Nuggets series. I don't know if I have as much to talk about as I normally do, but yeah, to speak on Milwaukee and Brooklyn. You never want to bet on an injury, but just with the way that this season has gone, you had to have foreseen one of these guys or more having some issues. And surprisingly, it's not the one who came off an Achilles tear just a year ago, or I guess 2 years now. Today's the 2-year anniversary of Raptors championship, by the way. Shut that out. What a time to be alive. Uh, anyways, this series between the Bucks and the Nets has been a letdown, to be brief and blunt. Two blowouts to start, and then you get the absolute rock fight that is game three, and really hard to fathom how these two teams both scored under 90 points in this era of basketball, but it was just terrible offense on both sides, people refusing to run sets, pretty physical, which is what, if you're Milwaukee, that's what you're hoping for out of these games. And it came down to, in game three, at least, Kevin Durant being out of this world, but Bruce Brown having a young player in the playoffs moment and going, it's Bruce Brown time, and just bricking a layup for the game when you probably want to get it into the hands of the greatest scoring player maybe ever in terms of how he can score. And so that's a big win for Milwaukee. Feels a little bit like how Toronto won that double overtime game in game three when Milwaukee was up 2-0. And the tide quickly shifts. The fourth game goes pretty equal for the first half. Shot making on both sides. Holiday's getting in there a little bit more in terms of buckets, and PJ Tucker's like inside the jersey of Kevin Durant every time he has the ball. KD, of course, still going to make shots, but PJ's playing really physical. He's fighting over every screen, even when it's 40 feet from the basket. They're really trying to get up in the face of Kevin and make the other guys on the Brooklyn Nets beat them. And it started to work. And then the Kyrie injury happens, and it doesn't look good. Pretty bad ankle sprain, it looks like, and a high one at that, as he was holding up around his shin area, which means you're looking at 4 to 6 weeks at a minimum. Of course, cannot diagnose it just from looking at the mechanism of injury, but it didn't look good. And that's a huge loss where now this Nets team has to rely on Mike James and Chris Chioza and Tyler Johnson if they're bringing guys off the bench. And that's reminiscent of what this Nets team looked like last year when the Raptors just absolutely creamed them in that first round series. And Kevin Durant, he's an incredible player and he does so many amazing things on both sides of the ball. But when your team is built around having at least two generational superstars and then a bunch of role guys, and you're down to one, then the weaknesses really become apparent. And that's what happened. And Giannis taking it at Blake and getting lots of free throws where he makes half of them, but then Middleton and Drew Holiday really doing a great job creating shots. Pat Connaughton was great in this game for the Bucks, even after taking an elbow to the face where he just opened up like a fruit gusher around his eyeball. But Milwaukee got great contribution from their role guys because they see more confidence in facing the end of the Brooklyn Nets bench as opposed to their top starting players or their top role players, right? It's a lot easier to go and attack Tyler Johnson and run actions with Tyler Johnson than even like Joe Harris, who is not the best defender, but he's a starter for a reason and he competes and he's got that awareness to at least play some defense. And when you're getting more Nick Claxton minutes as opposed to Blake Griffin or Jeff Green or whoever else you want, then things just open up a little bit more for Milwaukee. Crowds behind them, and they're right back in this series. And yeah, it comes down truly to injuries where many of these playoff series have. Um, but that's an important part when you're building a roster is you got to look at how the best ability is availability. And for the Brooklyn Nets, it could be costly to their season. Who knows? Maybe Harden has been healthy this whole time and now they're just going to call on him to come in and contribute. So it'll be really, really interesting to see what game 5 looks like.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. I mean, there's no season without, and with that kind of grade 2 sprain uh, level of injury, in a do or die situation, I wonder if they make the decision to pull the trigger and throw him in there. But it's also, we're in the second round still. So yeah, great. Like Harden goes, injures himself more and gets you through the second round. He's out for the third and fourth round. So there'd be plenty to criticize about that decision and how much more does it really get you. I do wonder how Giannis is working on those free throws. I heard this fascinating thing from my roommate the other week about this study they ran where they had guys take jump shots from like one spot on the court consistently, and then another group take jump shots from two spots on the court consistently. And what they found was the guys taking shots from one spot on that day could like hit the shots from that one spot better than the guys could hit from either of those two spots. But in terms of longer term retention, like you return them to the gym a week later, say, and the guys who were shooting from different spots actually were more accurate. It's a better long-term retention skill development. I don't know if you know this exact study I'm talking about or it's a basic principle.
No, I don't know the exact study, but it is something that I have also heard about in the past. It's the variance, right? The thing that makes you so successful as an athlete in your variety of skills is you work on a variety of scenarios. And it's not to say that you're working on a different skill like basketball for it's a jump shot, right? That part is consistent and you can't really replicate that in other sports the same way. But you're going to be better if you're shooting from different ranges, different situations, moving from side to side, because it just works on your touch and how you perceive that range from where you are relative to the basket. And with Giannis, I'm sure he has spent, because he's an incredible work ethic, but he spent hours and hours and hours and hours doing that same thing over and over again. And while it should be muscle memory, it's something that again has been talked about. Whereas soon as something is off in your rhythm shooting a free throw and you miss that one, it completely shatters you. And he has been broken now for a long time. It's completely and utterly mental. He is a fine shooter, but he's just so deep in his own head that he takes 15 seconds in between each free throw and then short arms it, right? Like we've seen air balls. We've seen, just terrible free throws. And I think for him, the reason why I said last podcast, speed it up a little bit is so that you think about it less. And it's more of that muscle memory that you've trained for those hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, I remember hearing that like Shaq could drain them at like an 80% clip in the gym. And I think that's that effect I'm talking about. When you do it for like an hour, then the next 10 minutes, you're money. But then when you show up to the game the next day, like that immediate short-term muscle memory is gone. And it's every time you shoot a free throw, even though it's from the exact same spot, you still have to calibrate. You still have to look at the net figure out where you are in a 3D world, and it's a new phenomenon every time. So it's about teaching yourself how to calibrate and take aim rather than teaching yourself the exact angle and amount of force from behind the free throw line. So Giannis, if you're listening, would love, like, coach, we got you. um Damn, I had one more thing to say and it completely dropped.
Well, I got one last piece of advice for Giannis. Stop taking pull-up threes with 20 seconds left on the shot clock. He can get, like, he can always get a better shot than that. Because even if Blake is in front of him around the rim when he's driving, they always still bring that second defender, and he's been great at finding open shooters. So whenever he shoots a three, everyone on Milwaukee is going, ugh, and everyone on Brooklyn is going, yes, thank you, Giannis. Like, he should not be taking more than like 4 a game. And those should be ones where it's reset to him with 6 seconds left on the shot clock, and he's just taking the one dribble three that is a higher percentage for him. But if he's bringing the ball down in transition and then shooting a three, like, that is just terrible. And again, if I'm a coach there, I am absolutely reaming him out. I don't care that he's my superstar. He knows better than that.
Remembered what I was going to say. It's also just free throws seem like the most mental part of basketball, and not even that connected to your skill and ability, because there's few guys in the league right now who you could say have the hand-eye skill and deft touch of Luka Doncic, and look at what his free throw numbers were this playoff. So a lot more than just your motor coordination and what you're able to do.